Shadiversity.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and I've been wanting to make a video about the importance of edge alignment in swordsmanship for quite a while. And the recent video made by the Slow Mo guys, which, I love me some Slow Mo guys, has provided really the best opportunity for me to address this subject, for a very important reason. Now, we have some really awesome sword cutting videos out there on the internet, showing some crazy impressive skill, but in regards to high definition slowed down footage where we can see exactly what's going on with the blade, well, that's a lot more rare. Now, of course, I'm not going to show the whole slowed down footage. If you want to see the whole slowed down footage that the Slow Mo guys have made, I suggest you to go over to their channel and watch their video. That's their whole thing. But their video has given me the opportunity to take some still shots out of their video where I can point out exactly what's going on and also what they're actually doing wrong in regards to their technique. Now, I've touched upon edge alignment before, such as my video, How Deadly Were Swords in Real Life, because it's a very important factor in regards to swordsmanship, but here is my opportunity to make a more detailed, dedicated video on the subject. And simply put, edge alignment is making sure that the angle of the sword's edge is in line, in the same direction, facing the same way, as the motion of the sword. And having poor edge alignment makes it more difficult for swords to bite into their target. The force that you're trying to put into the sword through your arms gets redirected, which creates more friction between the sword and the material you're cutting into. And this sucks power out of the sword strike. It also puts far more stress on the blade, that you'll get far more deflection and vibration as a result. And that force or energy that is causing that sword to vibrate is, again, lost energy that could have been directed into the target instead of being deflected back on the blade. And there are many instances where the target that you're trying to cut into will simply bounce off the blade. Even really, really sharp blades, water bottles, they can just bounce off. In fact, this is why a lot of people like cutting water bottles, because it's an excellent way to test good edge alignment. Now, of course, Dan, he mentions many times, is no expert with the sword, and this isn't meant to be a criticism of someone who is inexperienced with, swordsmanship. And he actually performs a pretty decent cut in one of the attempts, but in a very unorthodox manner, and I'll speak to that in a little bit later. But this is a type of mistake that many beginners who just pick up, swords for the first time and start, training, practicing and stuff like that, it's a common mistake that many make. And one of the reasons is because the motion in which the sword needs to travel, and the angle that you need to hold the sword as well, is very unintuitive to normal body, movement. You actually have to readjust the way you're swinging. And so if we have a look at the first shot here from the Slow Mo guys, we get a very clear picture as to what is happening. Now, I'll just play some of the motion quickly, because this will show us the motion, the direction in which the sword is traveling, but then have a look at the edge, okay? Where is the edge pointed in relation or in contrast to the motion of the blade? And we can index the angle of the edge thanks to the view we have here in this shot of the sword's habaki. Very, very off. And then because we have this awesome slow motion footage, we get to see exactly what is happening to the blade as a result. You see the blade automatically travel in an upwards direction following its own angle, but the motion in which Dan is actually trying to push the sword is not in the same direction. So his hands are moving horizontally across the screen, as we can see, but the blade has actually moved up in relation to it. It's been deflected and warped. Now, of course, swords made out of spring steel can handle this deflection quite easily, but one of the exact things that I mentioned just moments ago is happening right here. Some of the force that Dan has been putting into this strike has now been applied back on the blade, causing the deflection, which has created an ineffective transferal of force into his target. And so I find all this really intriguing, because Dan, to try and compensate to what he is obviously noticing, and they are speaking about edge alignment without really knowing what they're kind of referencing here in the actual video. And to correct for this, Dan actually purposefully repositions the blade so that the edge is actually angled in a different direction from the direction of his forearm through to, his wrist, hand, and then forward. And it works enough for the fact that he's able to get a clean cut, but for actual, correct swordsmanship, what you would want to correct is actually not the way or the angle in which you're holding the sword, but the angle in which you're striking with it. Having correct edge alignment in swordsmanship is so important that it's actually affected sword design to a significant degree. Nearly all properly made swords have an oval-like shaped handle if you look at them in cross-section. There are some very few historical examples of swords with round handles, but these very much are the exceptions to the rule, and the rule is that a proper sword has an oval-like handle. But by having an oval handle like this, it enables the swordsman to be able to index the blade, be able to tell in which angle the edge is pointing in respect to how he is holding it without even looking at the blade. In regards to the practical and functional use of swords historically, edge alignment plays a massive role in determining how lethal a cut will be, if it's just a superficial cut or if it'll actually slice in deep enough to incapacitate the opponent. But of course there are other many factors in relation to that as well, such as how sharp is the blade, its mass, the blade's width, does it need to go through clothing or thicker cloth armor to reach the skin, and things like that. So there you go guys, that is edge alignment in detail. If you haven't seen the Slow Mo Guys video, I do really encourage you to watch it. It's a heap of fun and also provided some of the best visual material to emphasize the importance of edge alignment and what can go wrong when poor edge alignment occurs when trying to cut. Hope you guys enjoyed, it was a lot of fun making this quick video, and I hope to see you again. Until that time, farewell.